Hello, everyone. Renee Funk here with Leadership from the Heart, together with my very favorite co-host, Miss Elizabeth Riley. Hello, Elizabeth.
Hello, my friend. I have to say, you're my very favorite co-host too, so the feeling is mutual.
We can say that.
That's right.
Okay, so we first met our guest today through his speaking engagements at Inman, and I gotta say, I was so impressed. Tommy Choi with Weinberg Choi Residential in the Chicago market. Welcome, Tommy.
Thanks for having me. I'm so grateful for both of you wanting to spend and give up 60 minutes of your time to learn more about myself.
We're excited. We know you have so much to share, and you have such an amazing reputation that I think a lot of people are going to feel that the next 60 minutes or 45 to 60 minutes is going to be very, very good use of their time. I know I am. So thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure.
So as we kick off, Tommy, just a small question. Tell us about yourself.
Well, let's see here. My cholesterol's gone up a little bit the last 90 days. So all I've been doing is eating frozen pizza at home. But no, I'm a lifelong Chicagoan. I'm first generation in this country and in Chicago. My parents and my grandparents, they immigrated from South Korea, Seoul, to the north side of the city, 2 blocks north of Wrigley Field. For those of you that are baseball fans, where the World Champion Cups play. They came here in the 70s. I live still in the neighborhood, just now 6 blocks west of the stadium, and have an amazing, supportive, smart, beautiful partner at home, Tesha, wife of 12 years, and 3 beautiful daughters, 8, 6, and 2, Henley, Momo, and Mare. Been in the business for 14 years with my business partner, Josh Weinberg. If you couldn't tell, I'm the Choi. He's a Weinberg, although I could be a Weinberg and he could be a Choi. We're a top 10 team in the city of Chicago out of 16,000 agents. Last year, we sold roughly about 72 million in sales volume, about 141 units, 1.3 million in GCI. Just having a lot of fun.
Just a little bit of business.
I know. I was going to say the same thing. Just, some small stats.
You might want to step it up a little bit, Tommy, because, we have high expectations on Leadership from the Heart.
If you have me again, I promise you I will come back, stronger and better.
So funny side story for a minute with Wrigley Field. So I've been to a game at Wrigley Field, and we were like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And it was when my oldest was about 5 years old. Our friends were living in Winnetka.
Okay.
Okay, we're all going to go to this game. And so we went and we got the hats and we got the shirts, and it's my little guy's first baseball game. And we pull up and everybody's like walking away, and we get a front row seat and we're like, what's up? Or a front row parking spot, and realize later that it was the bottom of the ninth, that they had changed the time, but for some reason we didn't get the memo. All decked out. We get our hot dogs. We stand in the stands, and my little guy eats his hot dog, and we're watching. All of us adults are like, how did that happen? And then the game ends, and my guy was like, that was the best day ever. All right, let's go home. I was like, okay.
Nice.
We literally all of this time and effort and money to go to a game, and we saw the very bottom. So anyway, kind of my fun Wrigley Field story.
You got a great story and a great memory from it. Yeah,
but it's awesome. The energy is amazing around there. So I think that's fun that you live so close.
Yeah, it's a great part of the city and fun. Although we're missing the team in baseball right now, but soon enough that'll all come back.
I feel you on that. As a sponsor of the NBA Magic, I got to say, I miss sports.
I know it's kicking off though. Everyone, all the teams are starting to come to Orlando to get this whole tournament thing going. So
they're here. They just arrived. They arrived the other day. So we got our eye on that. Good. Okay, Tommy. So let's dive in. You are an amazing leader in the industry, and obviously shared such amazing production stats, and you have a healthy, amazing team. We've all faced a time of adversity with our businesses. What is one of the lessons that you've learned and or overcome over the last few months?
That's a great question. And there's so much that we've learned about ourselves, especially the last 3-4 months here. I think, the biggest lesson that also helped overcome the adversity we faced is, and it was more of a reminder of why having some sort of company culture, whether you're a team or a broker owner or whatnot, is so important. Because, culture is something that, Josh and I, we focus so much on our team and pouring into the people because, it's interesting because somewhere in the last, I think, 10 years with, the huge boom in tech world and startup, this idea of company culture got lost in translation, and people, especially, the younger generation, start to understand culture as having a keg in your office or having some like Papa Shot games and things like that. But really, culture is something you can't see or touch, right? It's something that you feel. And during this time, the biggest adversity we felt, right, is the unknown. And even though we've been through recessions and shifts and changes before, it doesn't make it any easier when you're in the moment. The stuff that keeps us up at night is not so much our personal, finances or production or anything like that. It's our team and the people we care most about, and making sure that they're able to put food on the table, making sure that they're able to still have a career that they want. And so when even if, for us, building and preparing for things like this and having enough reserve, I think the biggest thing, especially because the last 90 days, there's been so much amazing content out there through webinars and Zooms and whatnot. And you see all these rainmakers talk about what they're doing. But I think the important thing to know is, especially if you're new to industry, I still worry, right? I still am scared at times. And so, those things that keep us up at night, making sure our team is going to still succeed and they can still provide for their families, right? Even though we have deep reserves, it still makes you wonder, maybe I need to have 2 years worth of reserves, right? Ridiculous questions and thoughts like that. But then the reminder of company culture, why that's so important, shows up in those times of adversity. And for us, it was getting phone calls from our team members and saying, hey, I can't even imagine the amount of pressure and the weight that's on your shoulders with what's going on right now. I just want you to know, Tommy, Josh, if you need me to take like a haircut on my salary, take a temporary step back, I'm willing to do it for the team, right?
Wow.
I still get goosebumps and a little emotional thinking about that, because you don't expect that. But then that's the company culture pouring into people, coming back tenfold to you and saying, listen, it's not about me, it's about us as an organization. And I'd say that adversity we face of the unknown and being a little bit worried of what does this mean, even though we are put together and we're a top 10 team, doesn't mean that we're bulletproof. And for the team to come back and step up and extend the hand to the leaders, right? That shows not only is the culture working, but two, right? The heart of being a leader is uplifting others and setting them up for success. And now the roles have turned where they're pulling us up, right? That's the beauty in what we learned in the last 90, 120 days.
Wow. That's a lot.
Powerful.
And it shows how real you are, right? Because perception is such a big thing right now. But when your team is reaching out to you and you're experiencing the culture that you guys have set out to create, not really understanding what you've created, right? And it shows that you're human and you're real and you're experiencing these things, and you still have the same fears that everybody else on your team and outside would as well. So it speaks volumes to what you guys have accomplished in your market.
Yeah, no, thank you. Yeah, it truly makes a difference. And that's, we're big picture, right? Something that we always focus on is that, we're not worried about what our year looks like, right? Because we're not in it for a December 31st, 2020, outlook. We're looking at not just having good years, we're looking at having a great career, right? Long term. So we're always looking at the big picture, and that culture is what anchors and builds that foundation deep so you can build on top of that.
Being that you're mentioning culture, which We both agree so much. Elizabeth and I talk a lot about culture together and on this show. What challenges do you feel businesses or leaders face with continuing to build and nurture culture in a remote-based environment?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the challenge is connection, the human connection piece. And I think, and I'll be the first to say, I was a skeptic too. I didn't think that a deep connection and continuing to cultivate those relationships could happen staring into a camera, right? And looking at each other and through a monitor. But what I learned through that is that the meaning behind the words, right? And being an active listener, coming from a place of curiosity and really still understanding and pouring into your people, whether that's through text messages or through a camera lens or through a phone or in person, the words, the content is really what matters. And I've learned that you can continue to not only build, but even strengthen more so in times like this. What I actually learned through all this is we end up doing a capacity audit on what, are we at full capacity? Where are we at how each person works? And through that exercise, what we learned is that we actually meet way too much in person. And that meme that's, been going around that says, hey, this meeting could have been an email. We've learned that actually, we need to leverage more of the technology that, meeting in person was something that for me personally, I felt better about. And I thought, oh, it's better to get messages across when we're in person. But really, when the trust is there and the meaning is there behind the words, whatever vessel you take to deliver that, I truly don't think really matters. And we've learned that we always meet in the morning every day, a team huddle at 8:30. And, we've been doing that since March 13th, Monday through Friday, that is, via Zoom. And our culture, our relationships, our team, if anything, is stronger than it was well. So goes to show you that, it doesn't matter how the message is conveyed. It's just that the meaning behind it is what really matters.
Well, and people see that you're showing up and they know your heart and they know your intention, and it keeps them coming back, right? So I know Renee does huddle with her team. We've done a semi huddle as well. I don't have a team, but I have a number of people that we all collaborate and share. And so we do a huddle as well. But if the value's not there and there's no real reason to meet, again, people don't want to meet just for the sake of meeting,
right?
Whether in person or on Zoom. So you're obviously adding, and they know your heart and your intention. And so they want to show up because you're showing up as a leader.
100%.
Yeah.
I think that a lot of people, and this is how I used to think, a couple of years ago, is why people think meeting in person from a team standpoint, I think is important. And to a certain degree, I 100% think, yes, it is. I do think eventually we'll go back to that when it's safe to. But I think a lot of it, the root of that stems to accountability. And I think a lot of people think that if you're face to face, you're able to hold people more accountable, which can be true. But I think really what it comes to the core of that is really that maybe the trust isn't built enough there yet, that you can't let go of that face to face and say, we trust each other enough, as a team, that the accountability is going to be there, whether it's face to face or through a video. So you just kind of have to put that first and lead with.
So let's dig into Weinberg Choi Residential. I hear a little something about giving back. Talk to us about the 365 days of giving.
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, so it's something that's really important to us. Giving back, gratitude is something that is one of our foundational pieces. That's a part of our culture. And about, I think this is year 6 now, 6 years ago, we've always been involved in giving back, especially into the communities that we serve, right? The communities that we are placing people to build their families and establish their roots there, pouring into those communities and neighbors and businesses. And so, 6 years ago, my business partner, Josh, and I, we thought of a way, like, how do we systemize this? I know we always just figuring out ways to give back, and any opportunities that come to us, we'll say yes. But how do we just make this a system, right? And that's where 365 Days of Giving came from, where we had a goal. We wanted to be able to give back every single day. And so how that broke down is that every month we pick a new nonprofit charity partner that's local, or even that's a national, a bigger picture organization that has ties in the city. And we figure out one of three ways to give back: either sweat equity, influence, or raising capital and donations to make. And sometimes it's a combination of two or three of them at once. And we plan out our year in advance at our team advance in September, and we pick out who, and every team member gets to say, hey, here's an awesome organization. Here's why they mean so much to me. Could we consider them? And we figure out next year's plan of every month who we're gonna give back to and how we're gonna do that. And the beauty in this too is not only does it fill our personal bucket to be able to pour into the communities and these awesome nonprofits, and a lot of the times we're picking local nonprofits that are still very grassroots, where the dollars are truly one-to-one impact, right? 100%. The cool thing about this is because this is part of our DNA, not just, Josh and myself, but our entire team, this thing has morphed into our clients understanding this is important to us and this is what we do, and coming to us saying, hey, I've always wanted to volunteer. I've always wanted to give back. I just never knew how to do it. Do I call someone? And that's where we really learned a lot of information that, a lot of people, they want to give back. They just don't know how. They need, to be tapped on the shoulder and told, hey, this Saturday, we're doing this walk, here's what you need to bring and here's what to expect. And people come out, and now we get to give back, and larger opportunities, we're able to open it up to our client base. And it's almost like a client appreciation event too, which is awesome. And how awesome is that to be able to not just serve your community, but do it side by side with a past client or someone that's supported you and your business, and to just give that energy back. And so it's been super fun. It's been great. And it's just awesome to be able to help all these nonprofits and really establish these relationships on how we can support, once again, the communities that we serve and live in.
I love how you guys are creating awareness and in the ways that you're doing it. I love giving back. I mean, I love getting my family and my friends and especially to the local nonprofits where I do something in December every year, and it's for those nonprofits that people don't really necessarily know about. And I get so much feedback from my clients and friends going, oh my gosh, I didn't even know this existed. Thank you. So what you're doing on a bigger scale, and I love that. I'm going to have to implement that too into our planning meetings, because you're not just taking one opportunity, you're spreading it out through the whole year. And what an impact that would make for your community. Yeah. Creating that awareness amongst your sphere and your clients just gives them even more reason and desire to work with you and continue supporting you.
Yeah. And what's cool is that some of the partners that are staples that we love doing, like obviously the Habitat to Humanity is a no-brainer. It ties in with our industry. And to be able to, after 6 years, see the progression where we finished off an entire block of homes now. And so it's cool to see that compound, or whether it's the local Ronald McDonald House that, we're always doing dinners, and to see some of the kids and families that just came in, and to see them 3 years later be like, hey, we're finally ready to go home and everyone's healthy and good. And it's just cool that, you match those faces and memories, and you kind of just build, these mini families giving back together.
You made an impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I got goosebumps as you were talking, and there's so many cascading ripple effects to the way that your team has decided to contribute to the community. The other really neat element, going back to our conversation with culture, is by involving your team and having them be able to suggest charities that are important to them. Well, that then you hear them, you're including them, because oftentimes, sometimes it may be a charity that's near and dear to my heart, but we all have charities that are near and dear to our heart. So I love that you've just cascaded positivity in so many different ways. That has a ripple effect that is long lasting. That's very cool.
Thank you.
Very cool.
So in the community, you're obviously very involved. But in the real estate industry, you're very involved as well. So you've served on many boards, in many committee positions. Talk a little bit about that. I know you were CAR's first Korean American president. You give back to your professional community every day. What are some of your favorite roles that you've had, and why is giving back professionally so important to you?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, it's a question I get, and I'm a very competitive person. And for me, how I equate my competitiveness, it's never against someone or anyone else. It's against myself. And I have this fire that's always burning. And for me to keep that fire going, I look for little motivational pieces, right, where I can put a log on that to go in. And that's something that actually it hits a nerve, because during my journey and my come up, people would always ask me, like, why are you so involved with the industry and the association? Why don't you just focus on selling more, right? And one, right, there's a motivational piece that hit me where, I learned that there's this stigma where if you give back to your association, you're not selling at a high level. And if you're selling at a high level, you don't have time to give back to the association. And so it's interesting that was something that was a log I got to add to my fire, to not only say, like, hey, I'm going to continue to give back, and I'm going to do it at a high level. And you know what? I'm going to sell at the highest level possible so that I can spark some sort of interest to anyone newer and younger in the industry that's being told this or thinks that, it's one or the other, that actually both fuel each other and both grow in parallel. The more you give back and you care, the more you succeed in business, and vice versa. Yeah. But at the foundation of why I got involved and why being involved is so important to me for our industry, it goes back to the reason why I'm here. It's my grandpa, he's the pioneer in my family that first immigrated from South Korea to the city. And, he reminded me at a very young age, right? He came here for opportunity, right? Obviously. But a big chunk of that opportunity for him was to one day own his own home. Okay. And it's not from the practical sense of having a roof over his head. He wanted to own his own home solely based on pride. He wanted to be able to put his stake in the ground and say, this piece of Chicago, this piece of America was his because he worked hard to achieve it. And so he reminded me at a very young age, because I was born here, that home ownership is not a right and it's not a guarantee. And that it's a privilege that you have to work very hard to achieve and work even harder to maintain. And as a little kid, I just thought my grandpa was old and senile, and it was just like talking like gibberish and nonsense. Right? I'm like, okay, grandpa, cool. Yeah. But the way that universe works, what he was doing is he planted a seed in me. Yeah. And it wasn't until after, in my first corporate job out of college where that started to sprout. And I understood why he was telling me this. And that was when I was at a crossroads. That's what led me into the real estate, the residential world. And so for me, giving back, that's the foundation, right? I have, because of why my grandpa came here, right? For that opportunity, I want to protect that, one, so that other people coming here for that reason, or people that are born here that want to own a home one day, has that right to own a home, or has that privilege to do that. The other piece of it is this industry has been very, very kind to me and my family, right? It's an industry that I don't know any other industries, to be honest with you, where 12 months from now, you could double and triple your income, right?
Yeah.
With that comes a lot of responsibility. And part of me, once again, that 25-year-old who was at that crossroads, that was like, corporate world is not for me. I was able to go into this industry because the door was held open. I need to make sure my foot is in that door so other people today that are feeling that way, no matter how old they are, and want to see the same successes that the three of us have seen in this industry, have that opportunity to. So that's why I give back, is that I want to protect this industry. I want to make sure that anyone else that wants this opportunity has that opportunity, and that our clients that we've served and will continue to serve, they'll have that home ownership rights be protected because of the work that we do as an association, right? It's cliche to say, but if you're not sitting at the table, you're on the menu. I never want to be on the menu. And I'm the one that's like, I can never kick back and say, someone else will take care of this. I have to be in the front of the line, making sure that I'm putting in as much energy as I can to say that whether it worked or it didn't, that I did it, right? And I gave it 110%. And so that's why it's so important. And that's why my journey to being, the 135th president, and as you mentioned, the first Korean American president, 135 years in Chicago, to honor my grandpa and my parents' journey, in that was huge. Next year, I'll be the vice president of the National Association of Realtors. So I'm super excited for that. So, it's just constantly, once again, coming from a place of gratitude and knowing how grateful I am for this industry and what it's provided for me, and making sure that that platform is protected so others can experience it, and people like us that are already experiencing it can still continue to grow that experience.
Well, before we got started, you said, we were talking a little bit, and you said, well, I'm going to change your mind on getting more involved in your association, because I'm involved in a million different things. That's just not one avenue. All right. You were successful. I will work on that, Tommy.
Baby steps.
Elizabeth, now you see
my list, and I'll blame you, but I'll do it. Renee?
It is so clear. Tommy for president. Tommy, you are, oh my goodness. You are speaking our language, because I think one of the traps that we as realtors can fall into is we can become so accustomed to our work that it becomes very transactional for us.
Yes.
And there's so many stories and moments in my mind. Recently, I saw a thread on Facebook about, what do you love most about being a realtor? And there's a lot of memories that I have that are amazing, but there's one in particular, and that is I was working with this one family with two younger children, and I helped them find a home, and the journey and the process was a little painful for them to find what they were seeking. We found it. And the moment that I was at the home after they closed to hand him the keys, the little boy, who was about 3 years old, he looked up to me with his big eyes and he said, "Can we go in our house now?" Mm-hmm. And he just ran in and he yelled with his hands in the air, "I'm home." And to this day, when I think about that moment, that's
what it's about.
That's what we do. And what a privilege. What a privilege. So when the way you're sharing your story, it gets me teary-eyed, because I just feel, I can feel it, what you're sharing. It's so important to love what you do. And it is an incredible opportunity and responsibility.
Yeah.
You're spot on.
I'm thinking of your grandfather this whole time as you're telling this, and what he must think, right?
Yeah.
How much pride he has in his grandson, that from such a young age, the struggles and the challenges that he faced coming to this country, right, for opportunity, and then to see how you've grown and what you've done with that little bit of information. He's got to be beaming with pride. So
thank you. That's, and here's the thing, that's leadership, right? Yeah. It's carrying, my grandpa carried dreams that he had for me to set me up for success.
Yeah.
And then there comes a point where I have to carry the dreams that I have for my children, my team, right? The people that are important to me, and hand it off to them to carry on for others, right? And so that, I mean, that's what it's about. And that's why, you know, telling these stories and being able to have a platform to share is so important, because that's how, you know, the roads we travel may be different, the terrain we walk on, the backdrop, but at the end of the day, when we hear and share our stories and we hear about the struggles and the wins and the successes, that's where the connections are made. And that's when we realize, you know what, we're not that different, right? And we, if you can do it, I can do it. And that's the importance of this. And that's the embodiment of leadership, you know, in my opinion.
What advice would you share with the real estate leaders of tomorrow?
Oof. How much time do we have here?
How much do you want?
You know what? Here's what I would say, you know, if I could go back, right, in a DeLorean and meet myself day one, June 1st, 2007, right, when we jumped all into real estate, you know, probably the three things I would share with myself is, you know, one, the results, don't focus on them. What you're trying to achieve, the end results, you have no control over, right? What you can control is the activity that leads to those results. So just focus in on that day in and day out and be patient, right? Speed doesn't really matter. Direction does. And understanding that you're going in the right direction, eventually you'll get to where you need to. It doesn't matter how fast or how slow you're going, right? And with that, the important piece of that, right? Because the way we gauge speed is when we look to our right and to the left in the other lanes and see if people are coming by us. That doesn't matter. Right? We're not, I shared with it earlier, I'm not in competition with anyone else, nor do I care. I'm looking for that incremental everyday growth, right? Waking up and being the best version of who I am and being better than who I was yesterday. Those two things, you know, and you surround yourself with the right people and you're intentional and purposeful on who those people are, all that matter, right, are the people in your locker room. Those three things you focus on and you will always be set up for success. And I think that's what I would share to the leaders of tomorrow, that you just focus on today. Don't worry about sales volume or units or how big your team is or how small your team is or whatever. That stuff doesn't matter, right? Just focus on your lane, being better than yesterday, right? And making sure that you're pointing in the right direction. And the people that you choose to surround yourself with that are going to hold you accountable and not tell you what you want to hear, but what you should hear. They're the ones that are going to make sure that you're heading in north, right? And you're not veering off the path. You're
validating something I always say. Renee, you know what I'm about to say, right?
I was going to cue it to you and say, well, Elizabeth shares this, she reminds me all the time. Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I don't know my numbers. I always tell people, I don't know my numbers. They ask me my numbers and I said, I don't care. It's not about the numbers. Yeah. It's about what I'm doing now to make an impact and to serve my clients at a very high level. The numbers will come. If I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing, they will be there, but I don't focus on that. So I'm always told, Elizabeth, you have to know your numbers. I mean, I will get up on stage in panels and I'll say, I don't know my numbers. And I'll tell people, I'm just being real, because surely people are out there that can relate to me. And so then I started getting a complex. Okay, maybe I need to know my numbers. But you have just verified that my numbers don't matter. So I'm back to square one. I don't know my numbers.
But the other thing you say that's a piggyback to that I get this saying from you, Elizabeth, is comparison kills joy.
Oh, yes. I say that all the time. I don't care what anybody else is doing. Tommy, I'm very much like you. I'm competitive with myself. Yeah. Right? I just want to get better and I want to do better and I want to serve better. I want to be a better mother, wife, friend, leader, right? But I tell people all the time, comparison kills joy. If you're busy looking at what everybody else is doing, you're taking the eye off of what you're supposed to be focused on, and it's a complete distraction. So that is something I say all the time.
You know, that's the thing. And that's, I think, why our industry is so challenging. You know, it might be easy to get into, But there's a reason why, there's a lot of turnover, and part of it is the distraction piece, right? We work in one of the most transparent industries where we can all look up how much someone we sold, and we can compute how much we're making, and then we can sit there and then pout about, well, I'm better than him or I'm better than her. How come, he or she's making more? But in that moment, you're standing still and there's no movement, right? And that's where people get caught up in this comparison game. And to your point, it kills joy, right? And that's where I think people exit out of the industry, where you just focus on that activity, the day-to-day growth, and you'll end up, in a place that you want to be and you intended to be in.
Yeah. You were on a podcast that I was listening to, and one of the things that you were talking about I found to be quite interesting and very important for really anyone in business, but I hear this all the time from our fellow realtors. What are your thoughts when someone asks you, how do you have time to do it all, Tommy?
Yes, that's one of my favorite questions. And this idea of like work-life balance, I don't buy into that, because I don't think there's a balance. It's just called life, because you have to work in order to live. So with that, right, people be like, oh, time management and all this. And that's another thing I don't buy into. You cannot manage time, right? I cannot say, Renee, Elizabeth, let's stop the clock right now. Let's tell time to stop and let's go watch the Avengers for 3 hours. And then when the movie's done, we'll tell time we're ready to move forward, right? Time is constant. It's moving whether we want it or not. How I, right, hacked it is that I just reconceptualize, instead of time management, I call it activity management. Because once again, that's what I can control. I can control the activities that I choose to do within the 24 hours that I'm given. And so with that, it's just understanding and prioritizing what you need to do, right? For me, the most important thing is my family. And I have 3 young daughters. And I want to make sure I prioritize my time spent with them. And so I know that means for me, I have to win my day before noon, right? If I don't get what I need to get done, that's the most important thing before lunchtime, I know that night when I go to bed, I'm going to have regret, thinking like, this was not a great productive day for me, right? So it's just auditing and managing the activity that you choose to control yourself to do. And it's cliche, right? We all talk about it, but the time blocking, it's so important. And for me, my calendar, it's interesting because so many people get into this industry because they're like, oh, every day is going to be different. I always say the outcome and the things we have to deal with are different, but really every day should be the same as far as what you plan to do. It's actually pretty boring, right? The fun in it is that you just don't know when the person picks up the other phone what they're going to say and the conversations you're going to have. But it has to be very predictable so that I can be able to prioritize the most important thing, and that's family. Do I have time to share a quick story on that? That was
yes,
so impactful. One of my coaches at the time, when Henley was, I think, 3 or 4, and Mosley, we call her Momo, she was probably just 1. I was like really struggling with I was in my head about, everything I did. I was saying, I'm just a terrible dad. I'm a terrible husband. I'm putting work first. And I confided in my coach, Abe, and, he asked me, he's like, hey, do your kids know what your goals are? And I'm like, what do you mean? And he's like, your goals, like your production goals, what you want to do this year. I'm like, well, Abe, my 4-year-old barely speaks like words to me. Like, she's 4, and my 1-year-old is just starting to walk and crawl. So no, they don't know what my goals are, nor do I think they would understand. And there's this long, awkward pause, and he goes, shame on you. And I was just like, what? He's like, you're not giving your kids enough credit. I'm like, so what do you want me to do? Share your goals with them. I'm like, okay. So every Sunday, right, we always go out to breakfast to this restaurant called Orange, right? When we're not, in shelter in place, in a neighborhood called Roscoe Village. And so that Sunday morning, we order food shows up. And I'm just like, I'm like pitting out. I'm sweating so much because I'm like nervous. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm about to like share my goals with my kids. And so awkward. I'm like, hey, girls. And I remember my wife looking at me like, what? What was that? It's like, when I'm not home at night for bedtime, it's because I'm meeting with different families. And they're interviewing me to help them sell their home so then they can buy something else and they can move, and when we do all this stuff, we get to do stuff like this, eat breakfast at Orange, and remember how we went to Disney World last year, and all this stuff. And I'm like equating it. They're just like literally like looking at me with their like mouths open, like, what are you talking about? Right. And I'm like, so, your dad and Uncle Josh, we have goals. And our goal this year is, I think it was like to sell 100 units at the time and sell like 50 million in real estate. When we do, we get to do those fun things. Do you understand? And then once again, they're just staring at me, eggs like dripping out of their mouth. At this point, I can feel the eyes from my wife just like looking at me. I have my peripheral vision, like, what are you doing?
Lost your mind, right?
So I'm like, at this point, I'm like, gosh, I knew it. I can't wait to call Abe and tell him I told you so. This is the dumbest thing I could have done. So I said, so what that means is Monday night, I'm not going to be at home to do bedtime and read stories before bed because I'm going to be meeting with the family. And then Wednesday, I have a client dinner. And then I basically went through my week so that they can understand how that links to the goals. No reaction, nothing. I'm just like, this is dumb, right? Fast forward. So every morning, that's one thing I time block is that I have breakfast. I make the girls breakfast and I walk them to school. At that point, they weren't going to school yet. But Tuesday, fast forward to that Tuesday morning, I'm making breakfast and I'm making eggs. And Henley, my 4-year-old at the time, comes downstairs. And she goes, hi, Appa. Appa is what is dad in Korean. And she goes, did you get the listing? And I'm like, what? And she's like, you met with that family last night, right? That's why you weren't here for bedtime. And literally, I'm ugly face crying, scrambling eggs, right? And that fast forward that next, after I leave, I drop my wife Tesha off at the train stop so she can go into the city. And I said, Tesha, you'll never guess what happened. And I'm like, Henley came down and she asked me if I got the listing. Remember that like weird conversation on Sunday about my goals and all that? She like understood it. And Tesha was like, wow, I can't believe that. And here's like the extra credit bonus lesson in this. Tesha, my wife, goes, you know what is crazy is that when you were sharing what your week looked like, that was the first time I ever knew ahead of time what your schedule was. Because typically it's like 6 o'clock.
Yeah.
Me, are you home for dinner tonight? ? And it's me going, oh, I got a listing appointment, right? And at that moment, I realized, oh my gosh, like what? Like I haven't even been sharing like that and communicating that enough. And needless to say, right now, time block Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock is family meeting, and now everybody goes around the table and we share what our goals are and what our week looks like. Even my now 5-year-old will say, like, I have a play date with Lily on Tuesday. We're riding bikes on Wednesday, right? And so we're now communicating more. And one, it 100% saved my marriage because now there's no surprises. And two, my kids, before were linking me being away for work as a negative thing, work being a bad thing because it takes dad away, to now they understand the goals and what we get to do. And now they're like behind me and they're holding me accountable, asking me like what our deal count is for the year and all this. So it's amazing. And so that's something that I always empower people to do, that especially that have children, is that you have to communicate what their goals are. And you have to understand that kids are really smart and they'll understand and they'll make that connection.
When you shared this with your coach, what was the reaction?
Oh, it's like, I told you so. Yeah. Listen, there's the reason why you pay me money to give you this advice.
What every good coach will say, right? I told you so.
That is so awesome. I love stories like that. Yeah, my kids it's a family business. Renee's as well. This is what they're used to. They know that in Renee's case, mom and dad, are meeting with clients, and it allows us to do different things and empowers them as well. But they're learning. I mean, my kids are learning to be quite the negotiators. And I'm like, where did you learn that? And they're like, from you. I'm like, okay, this might not work out so well, but they're watching. They're always watching us and they're learning from us. It's fascinating.
Yeah.
That's a really great story. And it put me in mind of one of our guests on Leadership from the Heart couple months ago, Avni Desai. She chairs a local organization for charity here called 100 Women Strong. She shared a tip with me that was really great. So as your kids continue to get older, she sits down with her kids as the school year schedule comes out and talks about all of the events that go on. For those who travel, for example, a lot, and I'm obviously in a different world without a pandemic, there would be times when, as parents, I would miss an event at school because I was traveling. Right. And so she sits down with her older children and she would say, here's the events. What are the must attend events that you absolutely want to make sure I'm at? And they have a conversation laying out the whole year. So I love what you're doing, not only for the obvious, because it's so healthy for the family overall, but I love that you're including the kids.
Yeah.
That's, I hadn't thought of it that way. And on a micro basis too, Tommy.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I always say my family, the kids and my wife, they're my board of directors, right? They're who I'm held accountable to. And so they're stakeholders in everything I do and what we do together. So yeah, it's been such a game changer, doing that.
Well, this is your hot seat question.
Oh boy.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Because I am. What did you say
for this one?
Didn't you do something earlier about pit sweat or something?
Yes, I was putting out at breakfast.
Okay, don't do that. It's not that serious. Well, it's serious, but it's not that scary. Tommy, what does leadership from the heart mean to you?
That's a great question. I would say leadership from the heart, for me, it revolves around this word called legacy, right? It's not just personal legacy, but building and supporting a legacy of the people you're leading. Just like I said earlier, right? How my grandpa carried these dreams that he had to pass along to me so that I can do the same for the people that, care the most about me. For me, leadership is setting those people up for success and making sure that they're able to leave the legacy they want, right? Whether that's carving out a career path, whether that's helping them achieve personal and business goals, right? It's wanting to see success through others. And for me, leadership from the heart, that's what it's about. That's the ROI, is seeing other people celebrate and the successes and seeing them achieve what they want to achieve. That's the return on my investment. It's not about bottom lines or what a P&L statement shows and profitability and revenue. It's about, are they achieving their goals? And what that does in return, right, is that the bigger that you're able to support in those people and the people, whether it's your team, the people surround yourself in their legacies, right, the bigger that they think, that pushes you as a leader. You have to think even bigger to be able to fit those huge worlds into your world, right? And that's where the growth happens. And that's what leadership from the heart means to me, is that you genuinely care about these people, that you want to see that success. And through that success, right, you see that return on your investment and you get to celebrate, which ends up helping establish and build your legacy.
Wow. I knew you were going to deliver big on that one.
I'm sweating enough right now. But.
Elizabeth.
You I'm so blessed to get to know you. I didn't know you like Renee knew you before, and I was so looking forward to this conversation for so many other reasons. And you have actually just exceeded any expectations I had, and we went in a completely different way. And I'm so blessed that we got to visit with you, and you shared so openly with us. And that's what this is about. It's learning from others. We're all leaders in our own way, but we can always learn and grow and build and be better leaders.
Yes.
Again, it's not a competition. It's growing and being better in our own way, right? That makes us better in our families, in our community. And you've shown up in a big way, and I'm so appreciative.
Thank you. That means a lot. And I'm grateful for both of you having me, allowing me to share.
We love it. And well, actually, I think we're going to see each other again on August 4th, right?
Yes,
Inman Connect now, Tommy?
I know. Now I have like a shot clock to make sure that I can build like a studio. So I like look, as good as you do.
You have to call Jeff. Just call Jeff. I'll connect the two of you. He'll give you the download on the studio.
Nice.
Tommy.
Phil. So good luck on that, Tommy.
Yeah,
I'll be for you.
We adore you. Well, you are welcome back anytime. You're amazing. Thank you for all you do to lift up the industry. Thank you for caring and pouring into others. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Have a great day.
Tommy,
Bye, guys.